Hello fellow YouTubers, welcome to Mukman Movies. As stated in my previous video, this video I'm going to go through my Noirvember films that I watched throughout the month of November. That's film noir, neo-noir, everything noir. I managed to get close to about 20 films last month. So stay tuned for a short review of each film, and I'll give a little bit of a rating down at the bottom. So stay tuned. So the first film of Noirvember was recommended by Neil over on Neil's movie channel, and that was Jean-Pierre Melville's Unflick. Now, it might not be his best film he's ever made, but it's still a tremendous amount of fun. It's a moody and atmospheric thriller with an opening bank robbery sequence on an eerily misty and deserted coastal street, which sets the tone perfectly. It's a really good opening. The bank robbers are headed by Richard Crenna, surprisingly, who's an American actor, but his parents came from Italian background, so Italian and French language very similar, so I can see how he could pull off this performance. And then you've got the ever-reliable Alain Delon, who's one of Melville's favourite actors, steely-eyed, and plays the uncompromising police commissioner on the trail of the bank robbers. And as the film progresses, like a love triangle develops between the police commissioner, Richard Crenna's bank robber, and what's she called? Catherine Deveneur, who puts in a glacial performance. So beautiful. So this love triangle starts to bubble from under the surface, while the police commissioner is trying to track down the bank robbers and doesn't realise that Richard Crenna is the leader of the bank robbers. Yeah, it's a decent film. There's a hilarious, daring train heist. It's absolutely ludicrous how it's put together. It's all filmed with miniatures, obviously miniatures. Had me laughing out loud. So it's a really funny sequence that really probably doesn't belong and doesn't suit the rest of the film, but I found it very entertaining. So yeah, Jean-Pierre Melville, Unflick. I give it 4 out of 5. So next up was Fritz Lang's The Big Heat, as recommended by Neil over on Neil's movie channel. I hadn't realised that I'd seen this before about 3 years ago. So when I put it on, I instantly recognised it. It's a really good film noir with enough intrigue and murder to keep you captivated throughout. Glenn Ford puts in a fantastic performance as the hard-nosed detective Dave Banyan, who goes on his own personal mission of revenge after his wife has been murdered. And then you've got Gloria Graham, who plays the sultry Debbie Marsh. Quite a quirky performance, but absolutely engaging too. And you also get Lee Marvin in an early role as the despicable Vince Stone, who really doesn't balk at giving a woman a beating, and he certainly deserves his comeuppance come towards the end of the film. Oops, should have said a spoiler alert then. Yeah, so The Big Heat is really good. It's not without its flaws. I would have liked to have seen a bit more compassion shown towards Glenn Ford's character by his superiors after his wife has been murdered. And the ending's wrapped up a little bit too quickly for my liking with newspaper headlines. But other than that, it's a really good film noir. It'd make a really good double bill with Curtis Hanson's LA Confidential. So my third watch of Noirvember was Dark Passage, starring Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall. Quite a brave little film noir for its time, this. The first half of the film, you don't even see Humphrey Bogart's face, so that was quite a choice to go down that road, considering his draw back in the day. Yeah, so it's a really well worked, suspenseful and intriguing film noir where Humphrey Bogart's escaped convict tries to prove his innocence with the help of Lauren Bacall. Um, it's really good in the first half. You don't know where it's going to go, but then it seems to sort of end quite abruptly. And yeah, it's a bit of an anticlimax, I found, but it's still quite an inventive film noir if you want something a little bit different. I give this 3.5 stars out of, well, 5. My next film noir was Richard Quinn's Drive a Crooked Road. Now, this was really surprised me. It was much more engrossing than as I was expecting. Mickey Rooney, he plays a socially awkward car mechanic who becomes besotted by Diane Foster's femme fatale, and his driving skills are ultimately exploited by Kevin McCarthy's mob boss for a heist. It's a typical film noir plot, and with the manipulation of the protagonist by the beautiful woman, and it becomes quite riveting towards the end as the heist is being carried out. So yeah, it was a good one. Mickey Rooney, probably the best I've ever seen him. And my only criticism would be that it ends all a bit too quickly. All the narrative threads are all tied up just a bit too quick. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one, and it's quite a short film as well. So I'd give this one an unexpected 3.5 out of 5. So the next film noir was The Lineup by Don Siegel. I love Eli Wallach. I've always liked him since seeing him in The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. So it delivers again here as a psychotic gangster called Dancer, and whose job it is to retrieve smuggled heroin packages in people's luggage, like travellers coming back from Asia. Unbeknownst to them, they're carrying drugs in their luggage, and it's Dancer, played by Eli Wallach. It's his job to go and retrieve these heroin packages. He's got a mentor who's played by Robert Keith. He tries to keep Dancer in check, but as the film progresses, so does Dancer's violent outbursts, and it leads to an intense standoff with the police as Dancer's using a mother and a child as hostage. It's a really good one, this. Wasn't expecting it. The narrative's pretty linear in terms of its storytelling, but yeah, I was entertained throughout. That was The Lineup, and I'll give that 4 out of 5. So next up was Joseph H. Lewis's Gun Crazy, as recommended by Altaz over on Cine Art Therapy. I'm really glad I picked this film up. Absolutely loved this precursory Bonnie and Clyde dark tale. Joseph H. Lewis is renowned for bringing us like stylish film noirs and westerns, but this is arguably his best, as he uses stylish long takes and some fantastic character building. John Dahl plays Bart Tarr, who meets Annie Laurie Starr, in a carnival. They fall in love, and Annie takes Bart down a path of destruction as they commit robberies and murder, and become fugitives across the state of America. Absolutely love this. There's one particular bank robbery scene where it places the viewer in the back seat of the car, and it's done in one take, so you feel like you're part of the action as they commit the robbery and then get away from the police. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely loved this film. It's definitely one I'll keep revisiting from time to time. might even be an annual watch every November. I give Gun Crazy 4.5 out of 5. The next up was another Joseph H. Lewis film noir, and that was The Big Combo. Now this is arguably the best looking film noir ever made. For me, it's the best looking film noir I've seen so far. It's absolutely stunning. John Alton's incredible cinematography, where contrasted light and dark shadows, cast shapes and silhouettes. Oh, it's absolutely exquisite cinematography. But this film is a police procedural drama where Cornel Wilde's Lieutenant Diamond vows to bring Richard Conte's sadistic mobster boss to justice. Lee Van Cleef and Earl Holliman play his henchmen, and they're both excellent and controversially for the time. There's references in this film, should I say, there's references to say that these two are actually gay lovers. Quite groundbreaking for the time this film was made. But it's, for me, the cinematography stands out above all else in this film. Absolutely superb. And I give The Big Combo 4 out of 5. Next up, I went all neo-noir with Paul Schrader's Light Sleeper, starring Willem Dafoe, Susan Sarandon, David Clennon, who was Palmer in The Thing. Who else? Dana Delaney and Victor Garber, who was the captain in Titanic. So it's got a good cast, but it's slightly understated as this one. The narrative doesn't seem to be going anywhere until the last 20 minutes, so it feels more like a day in the life of a drug runner. Willem Dafoe's the standout as John Latour, the drug runner who takes the heroin packages to the clients, but he does have a conscience, so he does often tell some of his clients they need to calm down and take a bit of a back step on their drug taking. So that's pretty much the plot line, but there is a subplot of a serial killer on the loose of New York that frustratingly doesn't seem to go very far. I'd love to have seen a bit more of that narrative thread, because Willem Dafoe does slightly get embroiled in that case, but then it just seems to peter out and go nowhere, which was quite frustrating. But yeah, the cinematography is excellent. It picks up on the grime of New York as the bin bags start piling up. Metaphorically speaking, Willem Dafoe's problems are piling up at the same time. So yeah, Light Sleeper, it's pretty understated. It's not the best neo-noir I've ever seen, but it looks great and it's got some good acting talent in there. I'll give that 3.5 out of 5. So I went all neo-noir again, but this was a revisit of Tom Ford's Nocturnal Animals. This is a stylish and sophisticated neo-noir that's full of retributive intrigue, where I get absolutely drawn into its multi-layered narrative every time. We live in a world where things and people are easily discarded, and Ford tackles the subject matter of grief and regret and revenge face on. Stories of the past, present and fictitious all mirror each other within the story, and the viewer has to also do a bit of narrative interrogation too. So yeah, this is a cracking neo-noir. This tells the story of Edward, who has spent 20 years plotting his revenge on Susan, played by Amy Adams, and he indirectly lets her know that he's done with her by sending her his new novel to read, and the lines between reality and fiction start blurring as she's reading this novel, and you find out that certain elements in the novel are mirroring their past relationship. The cast's exceptional. Amy Adams is fantastic as the successful artist who's become lonely due to her own actions. Jake Gyllenhaal, he's really good. He plays two parts. He plays his self. He plays his author self, Edward, and his fictional self, Tony. But it's arguably Michael Shannon who plays the ailing sheriff, and Aaron Taylor Johnson who plays the sadistic Ray. They arguably steal the show. Particularly Aaron Taylor Johnson. He should have had at least a few award nominations for his performance in Nocturnal Animals. Yeah, the cinematography, especially during the night scenes in LA, are absolutely stunning, breathtaking. It's one of my favourite neo-noirs, and I'm glad I revisited it. This gets 4.5 out of 5. So next up, I went back to 1944 with Billy Wilder's classic Double Indemnity, starring Fred MacMurray, Barbara Stanwyck and Edward G. Robinson. This is one of the best film noirs of all time. It's got all the ingredients to make a great film noir. It's got intrigue, perfect crime, a murder, the sultry femme fatale, and a relentless investigator hot on the trail of the criminals. Billy Wilder's in top form in the directing seat, and John F. Seitz' brilliantly lit cinematography and fantastic performances from Fred MacMurray, Barbara Stanwyck and Edward G. Robinson. Along with the smart and quotable dialogue, Double Indemnity is firmly at the top of my film noir tree. 5 out of 5. Christopher Nolan's low-budget feature-length debut, neo-noir, signals his obsession with non-linear filmmaking, which would later be polished to a sheen in films such as Memento, Inception, Dunkirk. Could have been an unremarkable neo-noir if it had followed a linear route, but because he chooses the non-linear route, it makes it much more interesting using this plot device. It's easy to keep up with too, because you've got the main character with different lengths of hair during different time frames, as he gets embroiled in a dangerous game of burglaries after following strangers in the street. Not the best film I've ever seen, but because of this non-linear structure, it just elevates it slightly. So on that basis, I will give this 3.5 out of 5. So next I went back to 1946 with Howard Hawks' The Big Sleep, starring Bogart and Lauren Bacall again. This is classed as one of the film noir classics, but I found it quite a weird experience. As much as I was enjoying the film, I was getting more and more confused by the convoluted plot. Lots of names are being mentioned throughout the film, and quite often you don't even see these people in the same breath as the names are being mentioned. So I was really struggling to keep up with the narrative, but strangely I was still captivated by what was going on, probably because of Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall. Their performances are just exceptional, but strangely Lauren Bacall seems to turn up in certain scenes unexpectedly, and I do believe the filmmakers just wanted more of Lauren Bacall in the film, so they just ended up planting her in certain scenes unnecessarily. As much as I enjoyed it, the narrative was rather convoluted. and I can't really give it top marks. A lot of people give this top marks, but I think I need to revisit this 2 or 3 times to fully get the most out of this film, because it was a very hard, convoluted story to follow. So I'll give The Big Sleep 4 out of 5. So next was 1945's Escape in the Fog by Bud Botica. I presume that's how you pronounce his name, Botica. Yeah, this is a strange one, this one. It's a tale of espionage with a supernatural twist. Our lead actress, turns out she's a bit of a clairvoyant, and she dreams of a federal agent being murdered on the foggy Golden Gate Bridge. Yeah, Botica's more renowned for his westerns, and he does a decent job here. The atmosphere with all the fog-laden environments and landscapes, it really draws you into the narrative. But I did find that the 2 leads didn't really have not the stage presence, but the screen presence to really engage me. But yeah, it's quite a short film. It's just over an hour long, so it's a decent enough film noir for that length. So I will give it 3 out of 5. So my final film noir of November was Edward Dmytryk's The Sniper. Now, this was an intense film noir, quite possibly controversial for the time it was made. You follow Arthur Franz's Eddie Miller, who struggles with his hatred of women. You follow him just being bothered by the mere presence of a woman. He's self-inflicting harm on himself. He's almost crying out to be sent back to prison. But he ends up going on a bit of a killing spree from the rooftops of San Francisco, shooting women indiscriminately. And for that, first half of the film, it's absolutely engrossing and captivating. Loved it. Turns into a bit of a police procedural thriller, and a lot of the attention's taken away from the character of Eddie Miller and focuses more on the police and their attempts to capture him. So it does sort of lose a bit of its impetus, but I loved this film. It was really good. I thought Arthur Franz's performance as Eddie Miller, the sniper, was just fantastic. I'm surprised he didn't make a bigger name for himself. So on that basis, my final film noir of November gets 4 out of 5. So there you have it. That was my rundown of the film noir films I watched during Noirvember. If you enjoyed my video, let me know in the comments below. Has it inspired you to watch any of these films? Or if you've seen these films, what did you think of my takes on them? I know there were only little short reviews to keep this video quite concise, but yeah, if you've got any comments and keep them sensible, leave them down below. If you're new to this channel and you've not subscribed yet, you can click that button down below, because there'll be plenty more film content coming up in the coming months, and I might even squeeze a top 10 or top 25 Christmas films in before Christmas, so stay tuned for that. But thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and goodbye.